The folder almost slipped from my fingers when my father's hand clamped around my wrist. His grip was cold, too tight. Behind him I heard the heavy office door slam shut, rattling the framed photographs on the wall. Somewhere, a glass of ice water tipped over, cubes scattering across polished hardwood. My mother leaned forward and whispered so quietly I almost missed it. "You should have stayed ignorant." Silence swallowed the room. No one explained what they meant. No one had to, because the folder in my hand suddenly felt heavier than paper. It felt like a coffin. "My name is Vivian Brooks." I was 38 years old, and I'd spent 16 years building Brooks Digital Logistics from a one-room warehouse into a regional company worth just over $18.6 million. Every tax return, every payroll, every sleepless night, I earned everything I owned, except one thing: my grandfather's ranch, 412 acres outside Jackson County. He'd promised it to me since I was 12 because I was the only grandchild who spent summers repairing fences beside him instead of asking for spending money. It had already been sold, without me. The years come fallrig. Mom invited me to what she called a small family lunch. She wore a cream silk blouse I'd never seen before. Dad had ordered a 12-year-old bourbon he usually saved for celebrations. My younger brother Mason couldn't stop smiling. Halfway through dessert, Mason raised his wine glass. To new beginnings. Everyone clinked glasses except me. Dad pulled a leather folder across the table. "The ranch sale finally closed." I laughed. "What ranch sale?" No one answered immediately. Mom stirred her coffee without looking up. "The inheritance paperwork was restructured." Restructured. Such a clean word. Like replacing a broken window, not stealing someone's future. I asked one simple question: who approved it? Dad smiled. "You weren't available." I hadn't been unavailable. I'd been in Boston for 3 days negotiating a distribution contract worth $3.1 million. My phone had never rung. Something felt wrong, very wrong. So I didn't argue. I smiled, congratulated everyone, went home, and started digging. The county recorder's website showed a property transfer, but something caught my attention. The electronic signature attached to my approval looked off. It resembled mine, without actually being mine. I hired a forensic document examiner the next morning. 3 days later she called. The signature wasn't naturally written. Forgery, plain and simple. I confronted Dad privately. He didn't even blink. "Oh, that's just DocuSign compression. Electronic signatures distort all the time." Technical words, confident voice, completely believable. "If you didn't know what you were hearing." I nodded, pretended he had convinced me. Then I quietly hired a cybersecurity investigator. The metadata told a different story. The signature had been pasted from an insurance document I'd signed nearly 4 years earlier. Someone had literally copied my identity. The Thristimirav. I acted confused, not angry, confused. That made them careless. A week later Mom called. "You've seemed emotional lately." "I guess I'm still processing everything," I answered softly. She sighed with relief. "I knew you'd understand eventually." That sentence told me she believed she'd won, so I kept playing. While reviewing Granddad's old storage unit, I found something wrapped inside faded blue cloth, an old brass compass, his favorite, the same compass he'd carried every hunting season. Inside the wooden box beneath it was another envelope, sealed, untouched. It read, "Final Estate Directive." My hands trembled. Inside was the last amendment to his trust, signed, notarized, witnessed. The amendment clearly revoked every previous version. The ranch belonged solely to me. No conditions, no shared ownership, no authority allowing my parents to sell it. Then I noticed something else. The document had never been filed. Granddad had died 6 days after signing it. Only one person besides me knew the lawyer who drafted it: Dad. I confronted no one. Instead, I listened. Sometimes silence collects more evidence than questions. One afternoon I returned to my parents' house earlier than expected. The garage door was slightly open. Inside I heard Mason laughing. Dad answered, "I told you she'd never check paperwork." Mom laughed louder. "Vivian always trusted family more than contracts," Mason added. "By the time she realizes it, the money will already be offshore." 3 people, laughing, about stealing from their own daughter. I recorded every second. None of them knew my phone was already recording inside my jacket pocket. That night I made a decision. I would stop acting like a victim and start acting like bait. I slouched my shoulders whenever they visited. I carried reading glasses I didn't actually need. I deliberately mixed up dates. Sometimes I'd ask, "So, the ranch sold for $4 million? 6.4. He couldn't resist proving himself smarter. Every correction became another admission. Every admission became evidence. The trap needed one final piece. I told my family I'd discovered another version of Granddad's papers. Fake papers. Deliberately incomplete. I left them inside a fireproof lockbox in my office. Visible. Easy to find. Hidden inside the lockbox was a GPS tracker. Tiny cameras and documents printed with invisible forensic markers. Then I waited. 3 nights later, my phone buzzed beneath my kitchen table. Motion detected. I opened the live feed. Dad, Mom, Mason. Inside my office. Dad whispered, "Take everything," Mom replied. "Especially anything mentioning the trust." Mason shoved papers into a backpack. Dad even joked, "Can't steal what's already ours." Every word uploaded automatically to cloud storage. Lilier invited everyone to my company's annual 20-year celebration. Over 180 guests attended. Employees, investors, neighbors, even the attorney who handled Granddad's estate. Dad arrived wearing his favorite navy suit. Mom wore pearls. Mason ordered expensive champagne before introductions even began. Halfway through dinner, Dad stood. He tapped his glass. "I'd like to congratulate my son Mason." He spent nearly 5 minutes praising Mason's vision for developing the ranch property. Then he smiled at me. "And Vivian, you'll always have your little business." Laughter drifted around the room. I stood slowly, adjusted the same brass compass in my hand. Granddad's compass. The room became quiet. I never raised my voice. "I'd like to correct the timeline." I displayed the forged signature, then the forensic report, then the metadata, then the hidden camera footage, then the garage recording. Finally, I unfolded Granddad's final estate directive, the original, signed, witnessed, notarized. I looked directly at my father. "You didn't sell your property. You sold mine." No one spoke. The estate attorney stood first. His face turned pale. 2 sheriff's deputies entered moments later. Right on schedule. I had shared every document with investigators 48 hours earlier. Dad finally shouted, "This is family." I answered calmly, "No, this is fraud." I placed the forged contract on the table, picked up Granddad's brass compass, and tore the fake sale authorization directly through the forged signature. One clean rip. The sound echoed across the ballroom. Somehow, it sounded exactly like freedom. The weeks afterward unfolded almost like evening news headlines. My father was charged with multiple counts involving fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. My mother accepted a plea agreement after financial records revealed she'd helped transfer more than $2.3 million into hidden accounts. Mason lost every development partnership he'd bragged about. Civil courts froze the remaining proceeds from the illegal sale. The buyer recovered funds through insurance litigation. The property title returned to my name. 3 executives who unknowingly relied on forged paperwork kept their jobs after I personally testified they had acted in good faith. None of my employees lost employment despite months of legal uncertainty. I refused to let innocent people pay for someone else's greed. Granddad would have expected nothing less. The brass compass stayed on my desk every day after that, not because it pointed north, because it reminded me to. 6 weeks later, rain hammered my front porch, a slow, miserable rain. I opened the door. Dad stood there. His coat was soaked. 1 suitcase, nothing else. I made mistakes. His voice barely carried through the storm. "Please, I've got nowhere left." I looked at him for several seconds. Then I remembered the whisper, "You should have stayed ignorant." I answered with the same calm I'd carried through everything. "I chose truth. You chose theft. We no longer walk the same road." I closed the door gently, not angrily, gently. Behind me, my husband Daniel wrapped an arm around my shoulders. He looked toward the brass compass sitting on the hallway table. "Still pointing north?" I smiled. It always was. For the first time in a long time. So was I. "That story taught you anything, let it be this. Trust is precious, but even the people closest to you should never be above accountability. The truth may take time to uncover, but facts have a way of surviving even the biggest betrayals. If you've ever faced betrayal by someone you loved, let us know in the comments how you would have handled it. And if you enjoy stories about family karma, quiet justice, and hard-earned victories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next story.